So if the fire alarm does sound, members of staff will guide you safely out of the building. Please can you set your mobile phones to silent, and please can you speak clearly into your microphones, and place your phones away from microphones so that you don't get a feedback. Okay, we'll start with item number 1, apologies for absence. Laura.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies have been received from councillors Jill Makinson Sanders and Will Grover. Today we've got Councillor Neil Jones substituting, and we've also received apologies from Councillor Tom Kemp as the portfolio holder.
Thank you. Are there any further apologies? No. Okay, moving on to disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest that anyone would like to make? See none. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 3. Now, the exclusion of the public and press is only necessary if people want to speak to the exempt section of the minutes. Does anyone wish to speak to the exempt section? That's a no, right? Okay. So moving on to the minutes. Okay, so this is to confirm the open and the exempt minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of June 2025. Councillor Bristow. Okay, thank you. And Councillor Ed Mossop.
I'll second those. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favour of accepting the minutes? All right, that's carried. Any against? Thank you. Those are carried. Okay, moving on to Chair's remarks. Just one thing that I've got to mention. I had a meeting with Councillor Martin, the Chair of Overview Committee, on the 3rd of July, where we discussed agenda coordination, budget planning, the memorandum of understanding that's coming up later on this agenda, the Invest East Lindsey report that we'll see later on in this meeting as well. And that was basically what we discussed. That's all my remarks. Has anyone got any comments on that? No? Okay, moving on to actions, item 6. Okay, so these are, the action sheet is page 29 onwards. Does anyone have any comments on the actions? Councillor Mossop.
Yeah, just on the bottom of page 29, it's about the request was made about portfolio holders' notes. And the answer is that any executive decisions are made. It wasn't, I think the point made was that it wasn't necessarily the decisions made, it was about simply records of what was being talked about in those portfolio holders, regardless of what the decisions were and the topics that were enclosed within those particular discussions. They were commonplace at one time, they're not now, and they were reported regularly, and they seem to have fizzled out, and I feel it does detach us a bit from a lot of the decisions that are made at executive level.
Thank you, Councillor Mossop. Yes, I concur. Councillor Bristow.
I concur as well, Madam Chairman. It's good to see what is the thinking behind a decision, either for or against, from the executive board, which is, as we know, appointed and not elected by the other 46 members. So it would be very helpful for us when speaking to constituents to know what the line of thinking was behind some of those decisions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think if we can take that as a follow-up to that action, that'd be useful.
Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Silcox-Cragg, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, as an independent member, I wanted to add my voice to that. I concur as well. I think we should be able to see the logical steps and the thinking that are in those notes.
Yes. Any further comments on the actions? Yeah, Councillor Mossop.
Just one more as well on the next page about the Ellie Stacey has replied to this, but saying that the balance of 0.3 million is still outstanding. Is there any? Do you know if going forward is there any penalty in relation to that outstanding amount? Should it be when is the deadline when that should have been paid? And are there any impact penalties or interest incurred?
Yeah, that's a good question. Brendan, do you have any input on
We'll
that?
have to come back with a written response.
Sure.
On that. I don't have the information with me today. So
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So if that can be added as a further action, that'd be useful. I did have something that stood out to me, and that was oh yes, yeah. Item 15, which is on page 31. Just to inform you that I had a conversation with Councillor Martin about item 15, which is budget preparation approach and process, and questioned whether audit and governance was the appropriate venue for this scrutiny item. On discussion with Councillor Martin, we decided that we would much rather have not so much on a committee meeting, but as part of a reserve members day, and so we have asked for that to take place, ideally sort of early November. So we're looking into that, and that was the approach we wanted to take, rather than put it into audit and governance or even overview. Whilst overview is more appropriate, we wanted to include all councillors and get everyone, give everyone a chance to input into that and ask questions and so forth. So if you've got any comments on that, members? No. All right. Okay, moving on to item 7. Now, this is the partnership annual safeguarding report for 2024 to 25. What have I got for this? This is Dave Pottle. Thank you. Dave.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we're presenting the annual safeguarding report for councillors to consider and to just receive the details for our actions for the year 24-25.
Okay, members. Councillor Bristow.
Thank you. Yes, I noticed it on page 44, section 2.7 about the summary of fraud, risk and stores set out. And there are 4 items, so nearly half of the fraud risks on here have a target to be confirmed. When will that be confirmed? And why?
I think
Sorry.
you're on the wrong item.
Oh,
apologies.
I'm sorry.
That's the next one. That's the risk report.
I'll have a question on that one. Thank you. So sorry.
Sorry. Yes, you haven't swapped over. Mr. Pilkington, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Top of page 35, it says the outcome of the audits for South and East Lincolnshire Council Partnership was very positive, which is obviously welcome. However, can I ask, if he mentions only a small number of actions were identified, how many of those actions actually relate to East Lincolnshire District Council as opposed to other members of the partnership? What is a small number of actions? Which categories do those actions relate to? So, for example, if they predominantly related to, say, modern slavery, you think there's an issue which perhaps needs following up, but they may relate to a range of categories of safeguarding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I can come back straight away on that. There were 3 actions. Not all the actions were simply a lack of us being able to evidence the work that we were doing as a partnership. So it's for all 3 councils, the work, and we've taken steps immediately to address that with the appointment of a safeguarding officer who gathers information on an ongoing basis for us to provide to audits. It was literally just evidencing what we do. So there was no question that we were doing what we were supposed to be doing. It was just there was a lack of evidence in the available to the auditors.
Thank you. Mr. Mossop, sorry, Councillor Mossop.
Yeah, thank you for the report. I was wondering about sort of some key messages coming out of annual reports that might show us and give us some kind of indication as to whether referrals are increasing or decreasing over the years, and also the procedure as to an interaction between our organisation and the county council, which of course has got a clear function in relation to safeguarding because of its strategic responsibilities relating to children, for example, in schools, and adult social care. So how many referrals do we usually get reported through our organisations? And you know, does our policy sort of show that actually we've got a very strong interlink between ourselves as a partnership and the county council and all their key responsibilities, where I suspect a lot more safeguarding cases are reported, but we don't necessarily hear whether they're coming out of East Lindsey, you know. So it's really the trends that I'm interested in seeing, how we get to have those recorded effectively.
Mr. Postle.
It's a really good question, Councillor, and with the appointment of the safeguarding officer, we have taken steps, like I say, with regards to being able to evidence these things. And one of the steps that we're taking is we are recording a lot more information with regards to any safeguarding concerns, whether or not they be simple low-level concerns where somebody just doesn't know whether or not it's a safeguarding thing, and things that escalate and go on to county council. As you rightly say, county council have the main duty in the county with regards to them providing adult social care and children's services, but we engage fully with them. And this same report, when it comes to this meeting next year, we'll have a lot more of that information that you've suggested would be useful, because we've been able to gather it. Prior to as appointing the safeguarding officer, we had no administrative resource across the partnership to help us gather and provide that information, so it was falling to officers to do it on top of their normal job, which is why the appointment was essential. But we will be able to evidence and provide Audit with a full breakdown of the number of referrals or safeguarding referrals that came to us, what the nature of them were, and what the outcome was.
Right, that's helpful. So we're really in a developmental stage with all this. You know, and as councillors, you do hear about certain things that might concern public, and I know from my own community where I can go to in relation to children, for example. But I wouldn't know if there was a wider issue in one of the other villages that perhaps doesn't have a school, and it relates to an adult, where I would go, other than straight to the county. But are you suggesting now we can come to somebody in East Lindsey, within East Lindsey or the partnership, who could signpost us through the process?
Yes, Councillor, we're just taking the updated safeguarding policy through the governance process for all three councils, and that has clear information on how to and where to do reports, send reports, and it will be provided to all councillors once it's gone through.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful.
Mr. Silcox-Crowe, please.
Is it possible in future reports to have more data? How many people need to have training and how that?
We've taken steps to actually organise the training via the council's First for HR system, and that will enable us to actually provide very clear information on who should have been doing the training and who has done it. It'll also mean that as a partnership and myself with strategic oversight with Emily Spicer, we will be able to keep an eye on that and work with service managers to make sure, but also to make sure councillors have undertaken the required training as well.
So that data will be in next year's. Great.
Right, are there any further comments on the report? No. This one's for noting, so thank you very much for your report. Okay, moving on to item 8. This is the Q1 risk report, and this is Corey Gooch to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. Yeah, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Corey. I'm the Business Intelligence and Change Manager across the partnership. And yeah, I'm here to talk about the Q1 risk report today. So obviously, yeah, so in terms of the Q1 risk report, the position remains fairly stable across the group. You'll note there are a few formatting changes to the report we've added for extra clarity. So on the cover report, there is a target status now shown for each strategic risk. This is obviously showing whether it's currently managed at its target score. We have mitigation action tracking with the red, amber, green status column, you'll note. And we have the action delivery column, which is obviously in the appendix as well, to show whether actions are on track. So this is some changes to or some response from the internal audit to obviously add clarity to the risk report. Obviously happy to discuss that particular section as well. In terms of changes to risk scores and why, I guess, there's a few points I just want to quickly go over. So we've got the health and safety risk. The likelihood of this risk has increased due to an increase in overdue audit actions. Obviously, these are being monitored. We've got the Director of Communities who is mitigating this risk by holding, I want to call them audit clinics. The actions are currently in progress. This is due to set on target for the end of this calendar year. So the end of December, we'd like to see that risk reduced. We have reduced the risk around capacity. This is due to the existing mitigations in place and ongoing delivery. So we didn't feel that this risk needed to increase at this point. We also have the net zero target risk that has reduced as well. All mitigations are currently in place and the programme of works, including policy reviews, is on track. And then there is a proposal to remove the domestic retrofit programme risk. The rationale for this is government funding has been confirmed for 25 through to 28, and the team resources have been adjusted accordingly, removing the previous uncertainty that we saw. There are some changes in risk mitigations and scoring, in terms of risk mitigations. There are no other scores to note for this particular Q1 report. So I think that covers the sort of overview of the report, but obviously any questions or comments I'm happy to take. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bristow, please.
Hi, Corey. I gave you a 5-minute warning there. Section 2.7, let me go at it with gusto again. Why do we have 4 out of 10 where we have a target that we don't seem to actually know what the target is supposed to be? Because that just seems a bit odd to me. Yeah, we've assigned it a risk score, but we say its direction of travel is going nowhere, but then we don't actually have a target status. Why is that, and when can we expect that to be filled in? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I had a feeling you was going to ask that question. Yeah, so yeah, you're right. These particular fraud risks, they are very new and they don't have a target score at the moment. I've spoke to PSPS to get these, and they have confirmed that they're going to send me their target scores by the end of this week. So as soon as I get them, I'm happy to share them with the updated scores. Obviously, it will be in for the Q2 report, but I will share them in advance just so the committee are aware. I guess all I would say on this is the risks that don't have their target score at the moment are very low in likelihood. I suspect that some of these will move from where we label them as treat, they will be tolerate, because they will likely be at their target score. I can't say that with 100% certainty, so obviously I will share those target scores as soon as we get them, obviously to the committee. So yeah, short answer, by the end of this week I'm hoping to have them, so I will share them as soon as I do have them.
Councillor Bristow.
Yes, just to follow up on that, I want to push back on the fact you said that these are for our new risks. I really am having a hard time believing that these would be new risk contract payments. rate fraud, those are ones that have been out since we started collecting rates. So I really would like to see some rationale as to when the numbers do come out, why we didn't have them before and what their line of thinking has been beyond them, because a medium score of an 8 or a 9 to me is not, I mean, it's on the higher end of the scale, or middle, high middle end of the scale. So I wouldn't say it's low. It's definitely there. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I'll track down the full sort of history, but this I completely agree. The risks that you raise aren't new. This fraud risk register itself is a new inception that we've recently brought forward. So I think the risks have always been there, but obviously in this format and the scoring is quite a new thing. But yeah, I completely take your point on the medium ones, especially where it's free likelihood. It's not that low, like you said. So it will likely still be a risk that we do need to treat. I think further clarity will be provided, obviously, once we get those target scores. And like I said, I will share them ASAP.
Thank you. I'd just like to interrogate that a bit more. On the NNDR fraud, I remember some years ago being introduced at back at Tedder Hall, actually, I think this was, to dedicated officers who promised to save the council a great deal of money because they were looking into that type of fraud. And I noticed that the report mentions field officers. One of the things I do wonder about that kind of mitigation is whether we need to periodically boost numbers, because it's one of those types of fraud where if you have officers come in, they will initially find a lot of new cases where people perhaps should be stating that they're working from home in a home office, that sort of thing. But after they've found it, the need to employ those officers is, it comes in waves rather than something that you might need to do consistently. So I do wonder if that mitigation needs to be periodically boosted, and whether that should be on our fraud risk. I know this is a little bit more operational than it is strategic, but I think that's worth interrogating. Have you got any comment on that?
No, nothing that I can really add at this particular time. I'll obviously take that feedback back through to the risk owner, in this case, obviously PSPS, Revs and Bens. But yeah, no, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I do remember being told that these officers could save the authority millions. So it's not a mind nothing. Thank you. Are there any further comments on the risk report? Yes, Councillor Mossop.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask a bit on the the partnership risk 8, which is about staffing, which is the headline is not on target. And there's obviously concern there because of the issue in relation to local government reform is one thing, but looking at the detail in Appendix B, there appears to be an employee benefits package for Q2, continue to work, but there doesn't seem to be any sort of final detail as to when this will actually, the risk will be reduced and will be on target. So have you any idea from the owners effectively, which is PSPS, is it again, when we might be back on target?
Thank you.
Yes, so it's a combination of PSPS HR and our own internal organisational development team. Obviously, it says there's a few mitigations in here. So there's obviously promoting or continuing to do the work through the SEL CP Academy. I do have a timeline for this, as it's been previously sent to me, so I can share that with the committee so you can get an idea of sort of what's being delivered and when. So you've got more detail on that. The employee benefits package, I will have to get more information on. The final point obviously it sort of references LGR. So this is a review of the workforce development strategy. So it's essentially about enabling officers and staff to feel equipped and ready for LGR, to obviously focus on retaining staff and promoting internally. Now, in terms of dates for that, the date we've been given on that is the 31st of March next year. So the target for this risk is the 31st of March next year, essentially. So at the moment, the likelihood is 4 and the impact is 3. And we want to see that likelihood reduced to 3. And essentially, yeah, that's end of March next year. That's the target.
Thank you.
very
That
much.
helps just to get that. And the timeline, you know, in terms of the specifics there would be useful, I think.
Right, are there any further comments on that? Yes, Mr Pilkington.
Thank you. Page number 41, in terms of depot space, it indicates the risk is high and the target is the high medium. And on page 49, it says that the information from the government relating to food waste collection delivery model has removed the risk associated with the council's depot. So I wondered why it was still at a high risk rather than a medium risk, or is the answer following on from the last answer is that it'll be reviewed at the end of this financial year?
Okay, thank you. Mr Gooch.
I'd have to take that away with the risk owner, but I will get a response for you on that one and find out more.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that report. Okay, moving on to item 9, the Q1 Treasury Report for 2025-26, and this is Sean Howsam to present.
Thank you very much, Chair. You have on page 55 the Q1 Treasury Report for 2025-26. This is the overarching report, and the purpose of this is to provide members with an update on Treasury management performance and activity to ensure best practice is maintained. I propose to go to the main appendix where the main information is provided at page 62. So this is the Q1 report ending 30th of June 2025, and the SIPFA Code of Practice on Treasury Management recommends that members be updated on Treasury Management activities at least quarterly. This report therefore ensures the Council is implementing best practice in accordance with the Code. Paragraph 2 provides a brief economic update of key indicators. And the main one from there, as far as the Council's investment portfolio, is that the Monetary Policy Committee met on the 8th of May and the 19th of June. And in May, the committee cut the bank base rate from 4.5% to 4.25%. You may also be aware that since the quarter end, rates have gone down by another 0.25% when the MPC met in August. At the top of page 63, you have the current interest rate forecasts provided by MUFG Corporate Markets, who are our external treasury advisors, and their forecast is that at quarter end December 2025, interest rates are expected to be 4%, and by March 2026, they're expecting the rate to be 3.75%. And then feeding through to the following March 2028, the lowest rate they're expecting is that base rate will be at 3.5%. Paragraph 4 refers to the Council's annual investment strategy, which was approved by Council on the 5th of March, which set the Council's priorities as firstly the security of capital, secondary liquidity, and then finally the yield. In relation to creditworthiness, there's been very few changes in relation to bank credit ratings. However, the Council do keep these under constant review to ensure that we are investing with the relevant counterparties. Investment performance year to date, the chart on page 64 shows you the graph as to where interest rates have been over varying time periods, and you can see there that the trend is marginally decreasing as time goes by. And the page on page 65, you have the Council's investments held at the 30th of March, 30th of June 2025, and you'll see those investments total just over £42.5 million. And at the start of the year, they were 47.2, so around about a £5 million reduction, which is due to capital expenditure. On top of page 66, you'll see there the chart of the additional loans that the council has made to Invest East Lindsey. And these have been held at no change in those values, still at £3.691 million, and the redemption rate showing there, and all the loans are at 4%. Interest for the quarter on those loans of £36,814 has been paid prior to the end of the quarter. Council's property fund investments, you will have on page 68, the usual table in relation to the council's property fund investments. The first one being the revenue fund, which since the report has been written, there will be an update on this provided in Q2, but this fund is no longer in existence. It has merged with another fund, and the council was not eligible to be an investing member in that fund. So the council received the investment back from that fund manager based on the net asset value, but full details will be reported in Q2. And in relation to the capital expenditure funds, you'll see there that the initial cost of £23.461 million. Since that time, the fair value of those property funds are now just over £21 million, which is an overall reduction of just under £2.5 million. And the change in the first quarter was a reduction of £105,000. That does also include the change on the revenue fund. The table on page 69 provides an overall summary of the performance received. So you'll see there the top section, Treasury investments. At Q1, we have out-achieved the original budget of by 344,000, and the forecast outturn on that is an overachievement of 940,000. Property funds has underperformed by 42.6. That is still an estimate because some of the actual quarterly returns aren't yet known. So that will change as and when actual figures are received. And the forecast is that will be in the region of 135,000 lower than the original budget. So overall, also the M&G property fund, which you'll be aware the council has, that fund is currently in liquidation, and in Q1 we have received a further £141,000 of receipts, and also in Q2, which is after this report was produced, we've received another £120,000. So we are forecasting that will contribute another £260,000 by way of revenue receipts, but those revenue receipts will be used to finance the MRP charge that is applicable on that property fund. In relation to the returns, Treasury investments achieved a return of 4.846%, property funds 3.465%, giving a combined rate overall of 4.384%. Paragraph 5 refers to borrowing. Due to cash flow requirements and capital payments, there was some temporary cash flow borrowing at the end of the 30th of June, which has subsequently been repaid, but interest costs during the Q1 incurred was £23,723. You'll see the chart on page 70 shows the PWLB borrowing rates, and you can see there from that chart that they are quite volatile at the moment in the first quarter, and they've continued to be so, going up and down depending on the news that is coming out in the economy. But basically, the 50-year PWLB borrowing rate at the end of the last financial year was 5.67%. And at the 30th of June, that was 5.71%. So what with all the ups and downs, broadly speaking, we are where we were at the end of the final quarter of the last financial year. There is a table on page 71 which provides further information and updates in relation to the council's treasury indicators and prudential indicators for 25-26. The recommendation is that members of the Audit and Governance Committee receive and review the contents of the report and Appendix 1. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Mr. Pilkington.
Page 66, Invest East Lindsey. Am I reading what's in the report correctly? Have we made a number of loans to Invest East Lindsey where in effect they don't have to start repaying the money until quite some time in the future? So caravan hire fleet expansion loan, in 21-22, they've been loaned over £1 million, and then it says 200k per annum from the 31st of March 2038. It's just quite some time in the future. That's a very generous arrangements. And I wonder if that's really in the best interest of the taxpayer. And I would have similar questions about the other loans information presented there. And then just to go back to what was referred to in an earlier agenda item where we were asking for clarity on the 300,000 plus, which was outstanding with Estes Lindsay at the end of the last financial year. I'm not quite sure which of those loans that money relates to. Thank you.
Yes, just to pick up the latter point of your question, the 330 odd £1,000 which was referred to earlier in the report, that isn't in respect of the loans or the interest on those loans. Interest on the loans and any loan repayments that were contractually agreed have been received by the end of the financial year. So that would relate to other charges that Invest East Lindsey were liable to pay East Lindsey District Council. As far as the loans were concerned, when the loans were originally issued, they did have differing maturity dates. But what happened during the last financial year, there was an analysis of all the loans outstanding and the Invest East Lindsey's financial position, and an alternative agreed loan repayment schedule was agreed for all the loans outstanding by Invest East Lindsey, and this is the timing that was agreed in relation to those loans and the order that the loans would be repaid. I wasn't party to those discussions, so I won't be able to answer any questions in relation to why the loan agreement that was reached was the one that was reached, unfortunately.
Thank you, Sean. Councillor Bristow.
I think Councillor Mossop is probably going to ask the same question. Who did agree those loan repayment? Because I mean, that is, we don't, as far as we know, we're not going to exist in a couple of years. So this is almost akin to, literally almost akin to writing it off. In my opinion, seeing that East Lindsey District Council is unlikely to exist in 2036 or 2037, I'm very curious to know where these very favorable terms were agreed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just to pick up the point around LGR and the treatment of any loans that may be current at that time. All the assets and liabilities of all the legacy councils will be transferred into the new unitary councils that are set up. So the public purse will not be writing anything off simply because of the LGR process, Chair. Just thought it was worth making that point.
Okay, thank you. Rebecca, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I was just going to clarify. So when the loans were taken in 20 and 21 and some 22, their original repayment terms were between 2 and 20 years. So and if you look at some of the loans that were taken in 2022, if they had a 20-year repayment term, that would be 2042. So the agreed repayment terms were done in the order that the loans were due, and so that the final payment was made back within the maximum 20 years of all. So the ones that were due back within a couple of years are the first to be repaid, and the ones that had a 20-year repayment term, which would take you to 2042, would be the latter ones to be repaid, so that all monies would be repaid back within the original maximum 20-year term that was originally agreed. That was agreed by, I want to say, executive in 2020 and 21, and between the shareholder and the company and the previous section 151, this new schedule, and I believe you had it at Audit and Governance earlier in the year, the new, I might be completely wrong about that, but all the payments are being remade. So that's what the 2038 is, because that one was a 20-year term. It wasn't due to be repaid back until 2042 anyway. So the fact that it's starting in 2038 isn't, we didn't believe, a risk, because it's within. Does that make sense? Or have I kind of started waffling? Sorry, I'll stop. Ask me to re-explain.
So I'm going to take Brendan's intervention.
Thank you. Just to try and set this in context. So members are looking at this schedule of loans. There is no suggestion, and I think officers present are all confident that these loans were set up using appropriate governance channels with appropriate business considerations. And it's very likely that the objectives associated with them when they were originally advanced, you know, are in the governance record somewhere. But the point is that the loans are being serviced. So, you know, the maturity dates are set out, and as time rolls on, when those dates arrive, the loans will be repaid, and I don't think we have any expectation at this moment that they won't be. So looking at this from a financial risk point of view, setting aside the whys and wherefores of why it was done, which, you know, if the committee wanted, I'm sure can be investigated, but that's in the past. There is presently, you know, the present issue is, are those loans to be repaid, and therefore will the council recover the monies that have been advanced? And as far as I know, there is no expectation that that won't be the case. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bristow.
Yes, thank you. As a taxpayer, I would actually argue and say, if we're not getting any money, so if you think about the caravan hire fleet expansion loan of £1.1 million, and we might say, well, £1.1 million is neither here nor there in the grand scheme of things, but for people, for our ratepayers, that's a lot of money. And say that we're getting 200K per annum from the end of March 2038. So that gives how many, 13 years for this business to potentially fail and not have the taxpayer be paid back a penny of that loan. So I understand that it's a 20-year repayment. I mean, I wish I could get those favorable mortgage terms where I don't actually have to pay anything back until 2 years before it's due. But I think this is actually, I would argue that this is actually exposing us to more risk. By saying, right, you don't have to pay anything back on this for X number of years. We're not talking about, you know, a financial year. We're talking about, you know, 12, 13 years down the road until we see one red cent. And I would really like to know more information about how that was figured out. This information is not exempt. So a member of the public could look at this and say, hey, wait a minute, that's my tax money. And I would like to know where those decisions were made from and who made them. Because if you live on the coast, which I appreciate not everybody does, if you live on the coast, you understand the caravan market is very, very volatile right now, that the sales of caravans aren't what they were, etc. So to say, right, well, we think that in 13 years that's going to turn around, I think that's a mighty wide statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor. Yeah, sorry.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, thanks, Chair. I tend to disagree, Steph, to be quite honest. I think if you'd said to them now, they were struggling at the time, and if you'd said to them now, we want our money back now, then the taxpayer would have lost the money. So I think extending it so that they're still paying it off at the time that it's due to be paid off, I think giving them chance to transition to get the money back, I think is probably the way to go. Although caravans sales are struggling at the minute, there's not many caravan sites struggling on the East Coast right now. They're all still in profit. So I think giving somebody time to pay is probably was the best option. Otherwise, you might as well have just pulled the plug and lost everything then. That's my view.
Thank you. Councillor Bristow.
I appreciate that, but I think that from a taxpayer point of view, the fact that we would not have recovered anything until 15 years down the line is where I have an issue, that we've got nothing coming in against that until 2038, and it's due in 2042. So realizing that now we have renegotiated terms, I believe, with them, made them more favorable. We've done everything we can to make this as easy as possible. that I think the taxpayer would like to see some of these loans start to be paid back, if they even realize that they're out there.
Okay, I think
Thank you.
we're shading into questions of policy rather than process here. And what I would like to do is add that as an action to ask for an explanation of how this decision was made and the details of it. I think that's quite important that we do that. So can you add that, please, Laura? Mrs. Silcox-Crowe.
Yeah, I just wanted to support exactly what you've said. I take some issue with Mr. Arnold's comment that these decisions were all worked out in the past and let's just move forward. I think that's exactly the purpose of an audit and governance committee, is to look at things that have happened in the past. Internal audits are looking back, external audits are looking back. And I think we're absolutely within our rights to say, how were these decisions made? Because it may well be that we learn from it and don't do it again.
Thank you for that point. Okay, are there any further comments on the Q1 Treasury report? No? Oh, having said that, I have a comment. Just a question on page 65, and it is just a minor question, really. I notice on our investments, we've got far fewer banks than we usually have. And my question is, are there any particular problems with the banks, or is it just that the large number of councils that we're holding money with is, you know, that they've got more favourable terms at the moment?
Yeah, there isn't any issues with the financial institutions that meet the council's investment criteria, because if there was, then we clearly wouldn't put investments with them. But the position really goes down to the returns that are available elsewhere. In other words, with local authorities, the local authorities are paying high rates of return, and they are effectively backed by UK government. So they are less of a risk. Perceived risk than a financial institution, and you are getting a better rate of return.
Super. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Mossop, please.
Yeah, a little bit more. I found something else that I did raise. I think the debate on page whatever it was about the investee Slimsy was was about lessons to be learnt, and that side of things I think was very well discussed by other members. But on page 70 about borrowing, we had a temporary borrowing for cash flow purposes on the 30th of June. How long was this for, and what's the rate, Sean, on that? Was it what was the reason for that? Is that just somehow or other money didn't come in when it should have done, or what?
Yeah, the reason was it was cash flow borrowing, not because money didn't come in or any particular reason, but it would be probably because the profile capital expenditure that we had scheduled to go out probably came out higher than anticipated, and therefore we'd made investments longer to maximise investment returns, and we got to the stage when large capital payments came out, we didn't have insufficient funds short term. So what has been agreed by the previous Section 151 officer under normal practice is we then go to the market to temporarily borrow that for a shorter period possible, to minimise the actual borrowing costs. But overall, the council, in investing those funds longer term, would have got a higher rate of return. And we don't want to be keeping too much money short term in the anticipation that we might have to make payments, because that does come at a cost. So on this occasion, yes, we'd overlent out the council's funds due to unexpected capital expenditure payments coming through. But if you just bear with me a second, I should be able to tell you. He says, but it was the rate would have been 0.1% above the Bank of England base rate at the time, and that was effectively we'd borrowed from 3 local authorities for that very short period of time. I think the maximum period was 1 month, and the other ones were probably two weeks.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a very reasonable explanation. I just wonder, you don't put any budget allowance for that, as you say in the next paragraph. Is it wise to have that provision, or was this really a one-off, or does it happen a little bit more with these big projects that we've got? Do we anticipate it might happen again? If so, you know, there's a bit of a risk that we overspend on interest payments. So,
yeah, I would like to
thought?
think it would be a one-off. It doesn't happen very often. Certainly hasn't happened many times while I've been managing the council's cash flows. And the reason why we don't have a budget is because we don't expect those costs to be incurred. But yes, as a result of actually borrowing, the council has incurred those costs, but that is countered by the additional income that the council has made by investing those funds longer term, because they didn't think that they would need them for that period of time.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much for that report, Mr. Hassan. Right, moving on to item 10. This is the internal audit progress report for September 2025. And I believe this is Mark Harrison to present.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the purpose of the report is the fact that the head of internal audit is required to provide a written status report to senior management and the committee summarising internal audit activity and progress towards this year's plan. Some areas of note to talk to you about would relate to feedback, which I believe is page 77 of your pack. One of the areas there relates to the feedback, obviously, and there is one that is poor, and this relates to the ICT cybersecurity review. Question 15, the timeliness of the report. The client felt the time between closure meeting and issuing of the final report exceeded what they'd been told by several weeks. I looked and reviewed our processes. There was a third party that was delivering this specialist IT audit on our behalf, and they hadn't followed internal audit procedures. This was due to them misunderstanding the closure process. And what I mean by that is when the draft report is completed by them, they should send it to myself for quality assurance, and they hadn't done that, or they hadn't informed the client that they'd done that, so therefore there was the delay. So that's been addressed, and any further use of a specialist auditor, they will be reminded of what our processes and our expectations are. The next area is the performance dashboard. 65% of the plan has been delivered midway through Q2, and there are currently no concerns with the current delivery model and staffing structure. The next area would be analysis of audit reviews, which covers all work completed to date, along with audits currently in progress. All scheduled work remains on track for delivery. There was one review that was classified as insufficient controls. This was the identification and monitoring of savings. This means the area audited lacks the necessary governance, processes or safeguards to allow a meaningful or reliable audit to take place. It was recommended and agreed by the Section 151 that a new review should take place in Q4. And the Section 151 has brought to you in a previous audit committee the new process that they are conducting and that they have started to put in place, and we will then look at that in Q4. We also outline our planning and resourcing. This gives an update on progress against all audits in the 25-26 plan. And then in the appendix is overdue management actions. That provides you an update on the outstanding high management action from 2020 and 21, and that has been extended to the 31st of March 2026. This is due to the income system that is used to take payments being upgraded. Implementation had been delayed. Alongside the upgrade, there is a solution of taking card payments over the phone, which will support PCI DSS compliance. The extension had been supported. Table 7 will show you those outstanding from 24-25, and Table 8 will show you all actions now under the new process with internal audit management and oversight. If you will note, we've moved some of the outstanding management actions for insurance, which was a previous audit, and for bank reconciliation, because previous audit committees had obviously had concerns in and around those management actions and the reviews. So we've moved them onto the new process. The new process will allow us to bring you a report. So the next interim report, you will actually get updates very similar to what you're getting on our current reviews, but relating to the outstanding management actions. We will conduct a review solely on those outstanding management actions, and we will present that to you so that you'll get a better understanding of what has been completed. That's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Bristow.
Yes, I'm sorry. Did you refer to a table 8? I don't seem to have table 8. No, nobody.
Sorry,
has table 8.
it's table 7. That's my
Okay,
fault.
thank you.
Mr Pilkington.
Couple of questions. Page 77, it does say the response rate indicates a lack of management engagement with the feedback process.
Yes, Councillor. In relation to that, we provide surveys to all managers once a audit has been completed. We have a KPI, which is part of the contract, that relates to the time that should come back. And obviously one had breached that time frame. Those matters have now been resolved.
That's good to hear. Thank you. Any Mr Silcox-Crowe, please.
Yeah, a couple of queries, probably on the presentation really, but obviously it helps us interpret the information. Page 76 says assurance opinions, substantial, adequate, limited, and no. So there's 4 of them and they're coloured. But page 79, the assurance rating is a different colour and a different phrase. I don't quite understand. So that's whether you want to come back on that or whether that's just a comment to take.
Yeah, I mean, obviously insufficient controls was sat outside of our normal audit opinions that were expressed there. But I'm happy to address the colours.
And what about address? Is it so if that's outside of your normal opinion, you're saying that's outside of the 4 opinions that you would give? Surely it should fit into one of those brackets.
So I'll pick that up if that's all right, Chair. We have 4 standard assurance controls that are listed, which are the coloured ones that you've made reference to. We would normally issue a no assurance. That's where we're looking at a system or process that doesn't give us assurance when we've done our sample testing and what that looks like. This is the first time we've ever issued an insufficient controls report. And an insufficient controls report is not able to meet any of our standard criteria. So it couldn't even meet the no assurance criteria. So it's something that's completely separate. It represents that we've had to stop the work for use and efficiency of our team and obviously your resources to say, actually, we don't have enough to be able to continue and conclude this piece of work, which is where it results in an insufficient control opinion as opposed to a no assurance opinion. We would have had to continue to look at nothing to deliver a no assurance opinion, which is not the best practice from an audit perspective. It is very, very seldom that auditors issue an insufficient control report. And it's the first one when I've spoken to all my peers as head of audits that's been issued in this county. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of context as to why it's not included, because it's very, very seldom used.
Yes, that sounds quite negative. So,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much for that information. That's very useful. I think possibly for the future, maybe pale blue is not the colour for something that is actually being described as redder than red. Yeah, this is not even a no, this is worse. And if I'd not been pedantic about colours and phrases, we would not have heard that.
Okay, that's noted, and thank you for the feedback.
Okay. Okay, so Brendan, please, first, and then.
Thank you, Chair. Given that this has attracted comment, I just wanted to briefly refer to what the councils are doing to resolve and improve the position that has been referred to. So there are a number of strands of activity. First of all, strategically and looking forward to the systems to generate and deliver savings in the forward period, i.e. financial year 26-27, and over the period of the medium-term financial plan. we've established at officer level a transformation board, which has representatives from all areas of the business in respect of all three councils and including this one. And that board is designed to be the place where close monitoring and control now takes place, and where real grip is exercised to make sure that, first of all, there is a managed programme of activity to deliver the savings that are needed. Secondly, that there is a process so that we can identify at any particular time that the stage that any delivery has reached, and to assure that the financial impact is being secured. In addition to that, and with a shorter term horizon, that transformation board is looking at any unmet efficiency targets that remain in the current year and rapidly identifying means of delivering them, both in the short term within year, but also to make sure that wherever possible, the savings are recurring in nature and therefore remove financial pressure from the forward years of the medium-term financial plan. So a great deal of management attention is being given to that. A meeting of that officer group took place yesterday, which was a seminal moment in terms of agreeing these arrangements, assigning responsibility, allocating any unmet efficiency targets that may remain in the current year, so that these matters can be resolved. And that meeting is accountable to the senior leadership team of the council for delivery of those activities. So I mentioned that to give members some assurance that at officer level we have picked up actions from the issues that have been raised by our colleagues in internal audit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bristow.
Yes, Mr. Pilkington, can you turn off your, thank you. On the colour bit, page 77, to be fair, at home, I couldn't see that there was a poor audit at all, and I can only barely discern the difference here. So if something is poor, can it not be almost the same colour as excellent going forward? The other thing is that in my day job is clerk to council. I get reviewed on internal controls, and I am responsible for much smaller sums of money. The fact that this council didn't have the internal controls into place to the point where an external or an internal auditor could not do their job is absolutely shocking. I will agree with Mr. Silcox-Crowe that this is redder than red, and could we not have had it be a different color other than baby blue? Because I think that really needed to be highlighted, because it is something that although I'm glad to hear that it's being rectified now, I really am concerned that it hadn't been brought up previously when these controls must not have been in place at an earlier date. Thank you.
Yes, I'll make those changes to poor, and they will be reflected as red. Thank you.
Mr. Pilkington.
Page 80, the risk register review. The auditors found that while oversight by the audit committee and senior leadership was evident, report formats and executive summaries were often unclear or overly detailed. Strengthening documentation, formalising risk appetite and improving strategic alignment and oversight would enhance risk management effectiveness. I would just like to get an update either now or at a future meeting as to what management are going to do to address that.
Yes, Councillor, obviously there are management actions, and those are obviously set in place for the officers within that area to deal with, and obviously we can feed back any of the management actions that have been completed, but it would be up to those individual officers probably individually to feed back to committee in relation to that.
Chair, I noticed that colleague Corey Gooch has left us, but I think it would be appropriate to ask Corey to provide a summation of the responses that have been taken to that particular set of risks. Thank you.
Thank you. If we can add that as an action. Right, I just have one comment to make on this, other than has been already raised, which I think is very important. Pleased to see on page 82 that you've got AI governance on there. One thing that I have noticed that there are a lot of emerging risks that we didn't know about even just a month ago. Things like GDPR, privacy, security risks from things like vibe coding, which is when people directly input the code that they get out of a large language model into production without the necessary security checks, the carbon use, the reputational risks. So there's a whole host of risks that are emerging and that are increasing that we didn't know about even just a month or two ago, and I think it's really important that we keep a lid on that. So I'm very happy to see that on your list. Are there any other comments from members? No. Well, in that case, thank you very much for that thorough report. And we will move on to the internal audit charter. Now this is for approval, and this is once again Mr. Harrison.
Thank you again, Chair. Chair, an audit charter is a formal document that defines the purpose, authority and responsibility of the internal audit function within an organisation. It serves as a foundational agreement between the audit team, senior management and the audit committee. The charter outlines the scope of audit activities, establishes the auditor's independence and provides the framework for delivering objective assurance and consulting services. It also helps ensure alignment with organisational goals and compliance with professional standards. It is good practice to review the charter when there is a fundamental change, such as a change to audit leadership, reporting structure, or as in this case, the change in the standards. The charter remains in draft until it is approved by the committee here, and once it is approved by the committee, it becomes our formal council audit charter, and it should be shared both internally and externally. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Right, thank you. Members, have you got any questions or comments? No. I was very happy with this. I thought it was a good document, very clear. This is for proposal for approval, so I'd like to propose that you accept that. And okay,
it's very good.
Your mic's off.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Okay, so it's been proposed and seconded for approval. Councillor Bristow, did you have a comment? No. Okay.
No, I was going to propose it if he's seconding it. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favour? Any against? Okay, that's accepted. Thank you very much, Mr. Harrison. Okay, moving on to the procurement exemptions register. And this is Martin Gibbs, and we have him joining us online. Martin?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Good morning. Yeah, so today I'm updated on the exemptions for the 6-month period from the 1st of March 2025 to the 31st of August 2025. In this period, there's been 14 exemptions signed off, which is slightly higher than the previous 6-month period where there were 10 exemptions. Within your agenda pack, pages 91 and 92, you can see the details of these exemptions, and page 93 outlines more details, including the business area, the exemption requester, and the exemption reasoning. As usual, I don't intend to go through each of the exemptions line by line, but what I'm happy to do is take any questions regarding those exemptions, and where I'm unable to answer any questions today, I'll ensure I get a response from the relevant officer and feed these back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mossop, please.
Yeah, I had a few questions on this, but also a colleague of mine who saw the agendas had some questions as well, but they stray into operational reasons for all this, which is not our role. And so I do wonder whether this whole report actually goes to overview for them to look at the particular operations and reasons for each of these particular subjects, because I think it's important that we understand this and the reasons why. But there is a process, obviously, for the exemptions, and that element is probably is within our roles. So, what is the process for an exemption? What does the officer do? What does the councillor's role in this, as well as a portfolio holder? You know, how is the process managed, so that we have a reassurance that it's done in an appropriate and safe way? And my second request is, can this go to the overview committee for the questions and detail about particular procurements that are out listed here? Thank you.
Thank you. So I can answer the process element. So on the basis of the exemption process, how it works is an officer will contact our service with a procurement request, and we'll go through and analyse some options for them. Often the case is they'll be saying they need to use a certain supplier, or, you know, some of those exemptions reasons like there are within these ones. And then what happens is, so there's an exemption form. There's a standard process across the 3 councils. This needs to be completed by the relevant officer who has the exemption need. And then it comes to myself and my team to review the exemption, check it, challenge it. So, and we put some procurement and contracts comments in to either support that or challenge it and query it, basically. And so from there, there's then a formal sign-off process that goes to the Section 151 officer, the chief executive, and then the portfolio holder for finance, and also the portfolio holder for the relevant area. So there's a 4-way sign-off for every single exemption. With regards to the overview committee, I'd be led by Brendan on that if possible, because like I said, if it's operational, whilst I can assist with the report, it would likely, depending on the questions being asked, it would likely be some of the relevant officers who might be able to support with those responses, but I'd obviously be able to kind of collate that data.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's the process that I wanted reassurance on, that you've got councillor input at some stage on that. We haven't got committee input on that, on some of the reasons why, and that's why I'm saying perhaps that's something that on a quarterly basis this goes to overview for them to ask those questions that clearly are being asked by councillors who are not in this room, who've had access to this agenda.
That's a good point. Councillor Bristow.
Yes, just a comment. I'm not surprised to see more with the exemption reasoning of 3.3.1 because I've recently had occasion to ask for a quotation for a council for commercial electrical installation, which we're talking £5,000 to £10,000. And of 7 that I contacted, 1 turned up and I still have 0 quotes. So I'm not surprised that for some of these more bespoke items, there just isn't, there just aren't the people, or if there are the people, they're not actually interested in, unfortunately, don't seem to be interested in whatever the business is. Thank you.
I would note that and agree with that comment. Thank you, Councillor Bristow, on the basis that, but what I wanted to add is, where possible, we do pre-market engagement and we try and engage with the market as early as possible to try and stem that. And there are, whilst in this scenario there's more exemptions, and there is a number with 3.3.1, as Councillor Bristow has alluded to, we do do a lot of pre-market engagement work to try and entice the market and interest the market at an early stage.
Thank you. I have a question, and it relates to a certain item on this list, but also a wider question of how you process it. So the destination Lincolnshire one stood out to me as quite a large, relatively large deal, but certainly they're not the only digital marketing company in Lincolnshire. And so the question really is, do you consider, when you've got a large contract that could be broken down into constituent parts, why was it not considered to break it down into constituent parts? So to go out to contract for the digital marketing and the marketing campaigns section of this, and to split it into two, and then to put the tourism section, which obviously that they are, you know, well, they are the ones to go to. I don't know if they still are. I don't know. There was something about them was mentioned in overview of the day. So, but you know, why not split it? What's the rationale for that? And when do you decide to split these kind of contracts up into two?
Yeah, so it's a good question. Thanks, Chair. And on a project by project basis, these kind of elements are considered. And with the new procurement regulations, the Procurement Act 2023, that is even more prevalent, that actually we should be making things easy for small suppliers, local suppliers, and where possible we can split elements of contracts. On this one, this particular project, and I can get a formal response from the officer, but my take on it when I reviewed it was there was a specialism and an interlinking element with the rest of Lincolnshire that Destination Lincolnshire were already doing, that kind of allowed for economies of scale. So when we did some review on that, that was one of the rationales for it, but I can get a more formal response from the officer if that would be useful.
Yeah, that would. Thank you. Yes. Okay, are there any further questions on the procurement? No. Okay, thank you very much for that report.
Thank you, Chair.
Right.
Bye.
Okay, moving on to the Audit and Governance Committee annual report for 2024-25, and this is page 95. Just going to talk you through this because John Medler's not here.
Sorry, Chairman, have we skipped an item?
Oh, sorry, have I missed something? Yes, I have. Why?
I think it's me.
Apologies. Yeah, sorry. Just for some reason hadn't written down number 13. Yes, sorry. Apologies. This is the verbal report, External Auditors Progress Report 2024-25, and this is from Dan Wiley from KPMG. Apologies for that. Yes.
No worries.
For pulling me up, Christopher.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Dan Wiley. I'm the Assistant Manager at KPMG. James sends his apologies, but we're aiming to join us at 12. So just a quick update from me. There's been good progress overall. We're about 80% through the work, which is obviously good compared to last year, whereas disclaimed. I suppose the key risk to timely completion of the audit will just be in the valuation of land and buildings. It's a significant risk, so we expect it to take quite a bit of time, but we have seen a couple of delays in receiving responses back from the internal valuer. In the past couple of weeks, it has been very good, to be fair to them, but we did raise these queries back in July, so yeah. And then there's also the floor plans. We had to extend the sample, and we know these can take quite a while from when we did them for South Holland last year. However, we are working closely with Ellie and the rest of the finance team to ensure there's like a clear plan in place for completion. And we have already had good conversations with Ellie regarding these. But yeah, overall, really good progress. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions? I suppose my main question is, you haven't made mention of any particular problems that you found. So is no news good news?
No news is generally good news. I don't think we've identified any significant issues so far, but obviously the work is still ongoing.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Right, moving on to the Audit and Governance Committee annual report, which I was so keen to talk to you about. This is on page 95, or starting page 95 as the covering report. Our annual report, and this is to review and hopefully approve. It's a fairly standard format, straightforward. We have my introduction, a list of the committee membership. Page 103, you have a summary of the meetings and the work that we've done with all the dates. We have a little bit about internal audits, work, and again, this is looking back for the past year and an overview of the main sort of conclusions they came to. External audits work for that year, and quite a lot of reports that came through finally, really. A section on governance, and that just looks at the main governance reports that we looked at again. Risk management, an overview of how the results from that from the year. Moving on to page 107, look at the Treasury accounts reports that we saw during the year. And finally, we look at the training and development, and there were 8 meetings that we had during that year, and 7 of them we had training items. As this is for approval, are there any comments, amendments? Councillor Mossop.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wouldn't want to criticise anything that you've written, Chairman. It's a good report, and it's very factual. And I think that's useful, and it will go to main council for their information. One thing that we have been critical of in this committee, those of us that attend, have been those that don't attend, and I wondered why. Sometimes it's quite useful to see when in annual reports attendance figures. Now, I don't necessarily say we highlight who is and who isn't here because of very good reasons, I'm sure, work being one of them, and illness being another, but perhaps we could have a global figure of overall attendance from those who were expected and those that didn't, in a percentage overall, rather than put it all on, unless anyone feels particularly vindictive and wants to highlight those that haven't been here at all for the whole year.
Thank you. Mr. Pilkington.
I would like to do that. I was going to raise the same issue. I think it would be relevant to include the attendance figures for the members of the committee and how many times substitutes have attended. It is a governance and risk issue if you've got a churn of members of a committee, because if you've got well-established committee members who've done the training and familiar with the issues, in all things being equal, they'll probably ask more questions and better questions than people who've just attended 1 or 2 meetings and are getting up to speed. So I think it is relevant to include information about attendance.
Okay.
Now I do think it should be by individual as well, and there's no reason you can't include information with that which says that reasons for absence were tendered and approved. Because, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Silcox-Crowe.
Yeah, I completely support what Councillor Mossop and Mr. Pilkington have said.
Right. Okay. That does seem to be a consensus. So, and I think there's no issue with including that in the amended report that goes forward to full council. So, with that amendment that we include the attendance figures, are we happy to approve this report? Are there any further comments? No. All right. Councillor Mossop, did you want to? Yeah, I need a proposal and a seconder, that's all. Okay. Proposed by Councillor Mossop, seconded by Councillor Bristow. All those in favour? Any against? No. Okay, so we'll put that forward with the addition of attendance figures. Okay. Thank you. All right, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the draft memorandum of understanding, and again, this is to vote on. Okay, moving to. Sorry. Well, yeah, we are quorate. Just mention at this point that we do have lunch. So and we've been going on for an hour and a half, I think. My clock here is completely wrong. It's well out. It's telling me it's 10:32. Right, draft memorandum of understanding, and that is page 113 of your pack. Are there? It's fairly straightforward. This. Are there any comments, questions, issues? I believe this has already gone through overview. Well, if we're happy with that, can we vote to approve it? And proposed by Councillor Bristow, seconded by Councillor Knowles. All in favour? Thank you. Yeah, this is just a fairly straightforward piece of work to make sure that we coordinate our committees properly. Okay. Moving on to the committee work programme 2025-26, and this starts on page 117 of your pack. Okay, 117 is in the it's in the past. It goes up to September. Page after that, the November plan. Any remarks on that? I do have the budget preparation highlighted. I think that's because we discussed that on the 19th that we wouldn't have that. So just to highlight that, and then it moves on to January. Page 119, that's the plan for March. Councillor Bristow.
Yes, if we're removing the budget preparation, is it moving elsewhere, or are we just no longer going to be looking at it from an audit and governance perspective?
I think it's, well, Brendan, do you want to comment on that? Because
yes, I believe the thinking was that as this year we have recommended that actually all members of audit and governance be invited to the budget scrutiny meetings that are being set up in early January, that it will be superfluous to have that particular item on the agenda. So we're looking to set up a much more inclusive, much more complete, much more, one would hope, rewarding process for members of audit and governance and of scrutiny with regard to their engagement with the budget process, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bristow.
Yes, just in the interest of diaries, will we be able to get those dates sooner rather than later? Because having sat on scrutiny panels, I know that sometimes it's a mad dash to see who can be where at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. So having those dates sooner rather than later would be very, very beneficial, I think, for all involved. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll have to my colleague Laura, but I believe those dates are in the municipal calendar now. So should be in diaries, but I'm happy to be corrected if they haven't quite got there, but I believe they have.
Yeah, I'll be able to send the invites out like today even, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for that item, it's, yeah, the overview date will be set so you can look it up. But in addition to that, as I referred to earlier, there's the hope that we can get a reserve members day as well. And that would take care of sort of the stage we're at in November. So yeah. Any further comments on that? No? Great. All right. And of course you've got the self-assessment actions on page 120. If there are no further comments, then we'll move on to let's see, item 17, the date of next meeting. The next meeting will be 19th of November 2025. And so next we're moving on to the exclusion of public and press. And I'm going to read out this bit because I do think we do need to go into closed session here. That under section 100A, 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the meeting for the following items on the grounds that if they were present, there could be disclosed to them exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Act